Big exciting news overnight as the push for MSC executive order today, it's Wednesday, is underway. Purple Power, this is the big day. This is the big day to make the push as the poll numbers are not working in the president's favor, and tomorrow's the debate. Moreover, a new report from the Federal Reserve minutes ago says that we need the stimulus and we need it now. We can't wait any longer. Additionally, today is the excitement. Mitch introduces that ridiculous bill to the Senate today, to which Chuck Schumer last night said, it's an emaciated bill and makes you want to go hungry. To which Nancy Pelosi turned to Chuck and said, Schumer going hungry, Schumer going hungry. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm here, you're here, the toast is toasting, the butter's buttering, the coffee's brewing, and Chuck Schumer's a little hungry, so, if you have an extra side of bacon, pass it to him. It's a great morning. It's a Wednesday morning, and I'm so excited for you to join me and this family here this morning. Thank you for tuning in for Early Mornings LALATE, which already has had about 100,000 views in the first 2 hours, and it's an exciting day. Go to the Funnest channel, subscribe. You know what today is going to be. Today is going to be 300,000 subscribers. Absolutely categorically incredible. We're about 600 away at the time of this recording, but perhaps not the time of upload. So really exciting. Next up, 500,000. Let's do it. Also, like this video. In this video, I have a lot of big stuff for you, even since the taping of Early Mornings LALATE. I'll be going over why there's a renewed push this morning for MSC executive orders and why today is a real big day to get it done. Next, I'll be going over more about what Mark Meadows says about larger stimulus checks. Third, I'll be going over the laugh track today. You don't need a laugh track. You don't need a sitcom. You can just tune in to watch Mitch McConnell make a joke of himself with the Senate floor. But that hystericalness that there's another Mitch McConnell that you have not met that apparently is doing the complete opposite, that doesn't want you to know that he's doing it. More about that in a second. Fourth, a new calls for stimulus this morning from the Federal Reserve saying, hey, what's going on, folks? Congress, you need to get this going. Finally, Goldman Sachs has a really in-depth report that says, I think we need stimulus. Well, thank you, Goldman Sachs. My Goldman Socks said the same thing. And your Golden Retriever probably has the same analysis as well. Let's get to the breaking news. The breaking news this morning is that today is really a big day for hashtag MSC, hashtag executive orders, and hashtag seats for stimulus. Let me tell you why. Because today is the day in which it was supposed to fall after Nancy Pelosi's deadline. There's no more deadline. She got rid of the deadline before the deadline passed, so there never was a deadline. But even so, you would look at the calendar and you would understand that we're, 14 days away from the election? Tomorrow's the last presidential debate. The president's down in the vast majority of swing states. A new poll across the country says the president is not leading on any issue, let alone economics. This is the first time that even the economy, the president is not on message and is now behind on the polls. So this is the time in which the president needs to take action. He's been behind the cart on stimulus for many weeks, and he's constantly looking to someone else to get something done. He does not look like the leader. The vast majority of the comments people say, is Nancy Pelosi the president? Because it looks like Donald Trump is not leading, he's following. And so today is really the day to do the executive orders MSC. And it would be an incredible moment in our country's history, Mr. President, if you did it today and really sort of change the face of America. Here is where we sit. $800 billion of unused first and third round PPP money that is currently sitting in the coffers of SBA's banks, that is not in the Treasury but in SBA's accounts, that the president can send out. This is unused money from a prior program that has since expired. It is no different than FEMA when the president looked to FEMA and said, hey, you have money sitting around, send it out for LWA, for enhanced unemployment benefits. Well, this time it's for stimulus, and the president can do it legally, should do it for purposes of helping the American people, and has time to get it announced today. That amount, $800 billion, would account for upwards of $4,000 in stimulus checks and allow for about, I would say, about 2 to 3 months of LWA for FPUC extension. He has an executive order for FPUC. He doesn't need to do another executive order unless we want to take away that $100 threshold, which a lot of viewers don't like, and I understand why. And he needs an executive order for stimulus checks. He would not get the stimulus checks in your hands likely before the election because we're really now too close. It takes about 10 days after executive action to get the stimulus checks in your hand. It's 14 days away, but the fact that the checks are on their way and he holds up a piece of paper and says, I did it, would give him the difference. It could win him the election, it could change the swing states, and it could answer what 63% of Americans said in a CNBC poll overnight. They said they want a stimulus relief now, and they don't want to see anything done by anyone else in Congress except stimulus until they get stimulus done. And that means this week and next week. It does not mean after the election. So this is incredibly great news. Next, Mark Meadows' comments overnight said that the president wants to give more money and bigger stimulus checks. Now, this is categorically incredible, but ultimately it's only incredible if the stimulus checks are on their way. It's not incredible if the stimulus checks are not sent, Mark. And while I do appreciate Mr. Meadows and his clear potential watching this channel on a regular basis by using catchphrases that I've coined on this channel, like "her way, the highway," and "we're finally at the finish line," and "a purple tie," all being said in the last 24 hours. Get in the president's ear, Mark, and say to him, you got to get this done. You got to send out the executive orders. Mark Meadows overnight said that I speak to the president several times today. This is yesterday. And if it's just $1, we're ready to increase the dollar amount for PPP, additional tax incentives for those offshore manufacturing, and will increase the direct payments to both adults and children that have really been suffering due to this pandemic. We will increase the direct payments, which is another word for stimulus checks, to both adults and children that have really been suffering during this pandemic. $1,200 is not going to cut it. It's not supposed to cut it. In fact, the president should say in his executive order, $1,200 doesn't cut it. He should say in his press release for the executive order, $1,200 doesn't cut it. And he should quote his opponent's VP running mate, Senator Harris, who strangely, to no surprise, I've discussed it on this channel before, to no surprise, since being named VP nominee, she has never talked about this bill. And it's very strange. I mean, either own it or don't own it. I mean, which one is it? This is an incredible, great bill, and she was all over press in the month of April and May when she was running for president. But now, once she's a VP running mate, we're not hearing about it. The bottom line is the economics is still the same. $2,000 a month is needed for 6 months. It's been 6 months. Now would be $12,000. It would change the landscape of American public. Next, let me jump out of order and go to the Federal Reserve Governor Laurel Brainard, because she follows exactly what I just said. She spoke minutes ago and talked about how important a second stimulus check and stimulus package is to be done right now. And she said that the issue is that you're currently seeing the recovery remains highly uncertain and highly uneven, with certain groups experiencing substantial hardship. The disparities risk holding back the economy. Further targeted fiscal support, which is stimulus checks, stimulus packages, will be needed alongside accommodating monetary policy to turn this like K, shaped recovery into a broad base recovery. I need to translate for you, certainly. What is a K shaped recovery? A K shaped recovery is exactly what I talk about so much on this channel. It is a recovery in an environment in which only the rich recover during this pandemic and the poor get poorer. The K refers to the top, and the top of the K refers to rich people who struggled during the pandemic, and now because they're getting a lot of stimulus from the president, or they're in a type of economy that doesn't need a lot of stimulus, they're going straight up. Their trajectory is straight up to rebound, and the bottom of the K is poor people who aren't getting their stimulus, and they're being evicted, and they're being homeless, and they're potentially getting COVID. They're the downside of the K, and that's what's so important. This is the Federal Reserve governor this morning saying, hey, we can't have a K-shaped recovery. And that's why it's so important. Mitch. Mitch. I just can't keep a straight face every time I talk about Mitch. Why? I just think it's like I think it's like a devilish little cat. It's like a cat that wants to act like it's really a devil, but it's really cuddly. And not to say that Mitch McConnell's cuddly. I'm just going to tell you what Mitch McConnell has been doing in the last 24 hours. This is what makes Congress so screwy. He's introducing today a bill. And the bill will be introduced with a lot of fanfare and balloons and Mardi Gras marching bands and, potpourri. And it will be announced, and Chuck Schumer will say how horrible it is. But what Mitch McConnell won't tell you, and what Chuck Schumer won't tell you, is that Mitch McConnell, behind closed doors, is working to get your second stimulus package from the president and Nancy Pelosi finalized and finished. What? Yeah, this is why it's like, Mitch, which Mitch is this? This is what Mitch you absolutely want to hate. You want to pull out the voodoo doll for. And there's another one that's like, well, thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate that. Mark Meadows overnight confirmed that Mitch McConnell is not only not working against the president, but working in favor of Nancy Pelosi and the president. Mitch McConnell has dedicated his entire fleet of congressional Senate members who are on subcommittees to work on the language, drafting, and numbers for the second stimulus package with Nancy Pelosi. And that ultimately what's going on is Nancy Pelosi's House subcommittee members, like Small Business Association, and the Senate's small subcommittee members are collectively now working on the language together, which is categorically incredible. The moment I first heard that, I thought, finally, you and I have sat through this and have understood that this cannot be a two-person horse race, and it has been. It's been Nancy versus Steve, Steve versus Nancy, every single day. And suddenly, at one point in the breaking point, somewhere in about the last few days, they just put up their hands and said, you know what, let's get a lot of people involved. Guess what? The first stimulus package was passed because a lot of people were involved. Stay with me. It's still at the 11-minute mark, and I got 5 more exciting minutes coming up in this video. What's important to understand is that Steve and Nancy did not get the first stimulus package done. It was upwards of several hundred people. And because there were several hundred people that were emotionally and financially involved and involved as a public servant, they felt that they were valued. This time, we went from no one involved except 2 people to now we're ramping up to somewhere between 50 to 100 people. This is incredible great news. Now, what will Mitch's bill have today? Mitch's bill today will have an additional round of unemployment benefits, FPUC. It'll probably be at $54 a week. I'm just assuming crazy bad numbers from Mitch, because this is Mitch McConnell. This is the other Mitch, the Mitch you hate. There'll be another round of PPP. So all his big lobbyists, the people that drive up with the Rolls Royce and say, hey, Mitch, here's a nice bag of money. Can you give me some more PPP? Yeah, sure. I'll do it for you. Okay. This is for them. There'll be $100 billion to make schools safe for kids. There'll be more testing, more tracing, more funding for Operation Warp Speed, and more distributing the vaccine around the country. Oh, wow. I was trying to hear. Was there some stimulus checks in there? I'm trying to hear. Can you say it louder, Mitch? I'm trying to. Maybe I skipped a line. No, there's no stimulus checks in here. No, there's no hazard pay in here. No, there's probably going to be really crappy FPUC here. Basically, it's a waste of time bill. It's just a waste of time, though. But the good news is that that's not the Mitch that you want to focus on. It's Mitch 2.0, the one that's behind the door that doesn't want to come out as like, he does that look. That is the Mitch that's really actually the gooder, the better Mitch. He just don't want to. He doesn't want to show that he's good because it's bad for the caucus. Uh, Goldman Sachs. Do you have socks that have a gold toe at the end? I call those Goldman socks. Well, Goldman socks may have the same analysis as Goldman Sachs today, because Goldman Sachs says you need stimulus. Oh, well, thank you. You went to school for that analysis? Okay, that's really good. Um, Alec Phillips, a Goldman Sachs economist, says some of the big issues remain unresolved and a deal doesn't seem particularly close. I love when Goldman Sachs has these analysis. It's like they're in the room negotiating with Steve and Nancy. Or are they just watching, this channel and coming up with analysis themselves? They say there's big differences and they may not reach an agreement. Okay, that's really good. There's a bank giving you analysis of what's going on. But the end of the part of this analysis I sort of do like. So I do defer to Goldman Sachs as to what they're saying in this. Should President Donald Trump, this is CNBC referring to Goldman Sachs, should President Donald Trump defeat Joe Biden, the current bill probably would get through a lame duck session prior to the new Congress being seated in January. Should Biden win and the Democrats take control of both chambers in Congress, there would be less incentive to push them through a new bill. What's important to understand here is that I have an opinion, and people keep on asking me my opinion. And this morning, I have a more robust opinion than I've seen before. And this is my new version of an opinion, my new tailored opinion this morning, which is I really think that the president will and Pelosi will try to formulate an agreement by this weekend, and that agreement, of course, will not be law because it won't be introduced to any floor of the House and Senate. And that ultimately what they'll say is, okay, we have an agreement, but I have something else to say, but we generally have an agreement. So they'll make it sound like it's qualified, that they really don't, but they do. And then they'll say, but, we'll introduce the bill after the election. And then you'll all just say like, darn you. You have an agreement, you're going to hold it to after the election? And I just sort of think that may be what they may do to us, Purple Power, is that they may say, okay, we have an agreement, but let's let the next president, whoever it is, whether it's Trump again or Biden now, decide if that's the bill that should be passed. And if President Trump is elected, then he'll introduce the bill the day after election. And if Biden is elected, then he'll introduce the bill in January. And I just have a sense, this is my opinion, and it could change by the hour, but my opinion as I wake up this morning is I just sense that both sides may try to dangle that horrible carrot on top of us, to which place we're going to say, hey, we're not doing that deal, honey. No way. So for the first time in a few days, I'm really bringing back seats for stimulus really big. I want to make it very clear. You don't pass a law before election day, you're gone. So don't dangle this carrot that we're going to get to it the day after the election, which is then we'll get to it in January, which is then we'll get to it in May, which is then we'll get to it 3 years from now. No, you do the bill now and you get us a law by election day, or you're out. Seats for stimulus. So when you're doing your push on Purple Power, on Twitter, Purple Power, make sure you got the messaging clear that you're not going to hold out for people to give you a stimulus law after the election. That is what's called a dangling carrot. We're not going to play that game. Let me go over some of your incredible questions from yesterday. Limp eyes. I like how the banks got bailed out faster than American people. Bonnie Branouche. Can anyone else completely horrified that everything these people we voted for into office and paid them huge salaries have done nothing? Deanne Barber, we need an attorney. Justin Ferguson, let's do this. Robert Sargent, can Nancy really be that dense and not see the trap she's in? Robert Harner, they all playing games of our lives. Matthew Baker, he can't and won't do an executive order. Untrue. Tammy, if not passed today, everybody, the starving children need to go. Terry Bruckner, she should have been voted out as Speaker of the House, Lisa Gray. How in the hell does Pelosi have so much authority? She needs to go now. As I said before, it's unlikely you could get the stimulus check in your hand of the president's executive order today, but you could potentially get it right around the day after election day. It takes about 10 days to get the stimulus check after it becomes law. So I know we're 14 days away from election day, but it's really tight. Bottom line is you get it really fast. Lisa Gray, how in the hell? Oh, excuse me, Jen Stoneman. They will just find another way to reject it. Watch out. Diane Howard, federal government needs to get going. Marcella, go big or go home. Otis, how does Steve Mnuchin tell other countries they need to give 20-30% of their GDP for stimulus and U.S. only has 15%? How do you do that to your own country? It's horrible. That is a site that is a fact that I report on a regular basis on this channel. The vast majority of first world countries have spent 30% of their GDP on stimulus. That was a fact that was first revealed on this channel, I think in May or June. They have now spent a lot more money. We still have not spent any more money. We were at 15% now. They're probably heading to 40%. So it's just insane. It just makes no sense. Linda Davis, Morning for Texas. Hello, Texas. Stay hopeful, everyone. Let's ride the storm out. A change is coming. And God knows what's best. If we stay longer, the greater the reward. Amen. Susie, I'm gonna wake up tomorrow. This year's over. Bruce Braum. Start concentrating on MSC. Get the checks out. We're all Americans working together, and that's what's right. Amen. Well said. Terry Haynes. Let's make a deal today. I would just be grateful to get whatever amount of check they give us. Something at this point is better than nothing. Very well said. As you start the new day, there's a lot of promise and there's a lot of hope. Let's get through this together. Coming up at 12 noon is 28. I will have more details about why today is such a key day in the last 14 days before this election and why stimulus needs to be sent out now. A stimulus law needs to be passed now, and that no more talking can be seen going forward because talk is cheap at this point. Time is of the essence. And as a family, we will get through this together. Go to the Funnest channel, subscribe. 300,000 subscribers, baby. Let's do it. Also, like this video. Coming up next, of course, is 28 at 12 noon. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, and stay valid for more.